पूजा यद्यत्कर्म करोमि तत्फलं शम्भो Very glad again to be sitting with you all. Initially I had some other ideas, but I think what we were discussing we can carry for more meaningful completion. That's what I thought we should do. We started the day mainly based on one of the chapters in the book Self-Knowledge by YVFAcourse, and that was about the God in the Avataras. And we would like to carry forward today mainly based upon the Bhagavad-gita teachings, again as explained by atSivananda. And these commentaries, as you all know, are largely based upon atSivananda's commentary. So even if some of you are not able to fully read the atSivananda's commentary, even if you read the Bhagavad-gita's commentary, it is actually good. That's what I have verified. So we'll do that too. That day we are discussing about supreme reality, which is called as Parabrahman, which in its most intrinsic form is Nirguna and Vyaka. That is, without attributes and without form. And it also sometimes called unqualified. Actually, we qualified as something not very good. But here, there are no characteristics, there are no gunas, nothing which can characterize. That is how it's called as unqualified. So, Nirguna Vyaka intrinsic, the ultimate form of supreme reality, which is Nirguna Vyaka, and also called as unqualified. And then, other side that we saw, that whenever that same Parabrahman, which the closest English translation being supreme, that we are getting. Now, creation is a word which is very commonly used only in Sanatana. It is not Srishti, not very commonly used very little. Because the moment the word Srishti is there, creation is there, always there has to be a creator. And people are not very comfortable with that concept of creator. So that's something very unique or very characteristic to our Sanatana. And as we also discussed that day, that this creation can be looked upon, although it is not true. But from the point of view of individual perception, we can call it as either a Vyashti or Samshti. Vyashti is the individual existence that we are. We feel as a separate entity. If you do this particular body, mind, intellect, and we feel there is a difference between these and the Jagata and the Ashram. That is how it is Vyashti. And Samshti is the whole of creation. So in a way, Vyashti is a part of Samshti. Individual is a part of universal. And there are no two separate creations. But for the sake of simplicity, we can take it like this, and that helps us in our understanding process. And we will try to see further today that, as we discussed that day, that there are two ways in which we can worship supreme reality. One is Nirguna and one is Sarvajna. So with attribute and with forms. And that is what is very common to most of us. Now, that we also were discussing that in Bhagavad-gita, there is a very important story, which also is highlighted. I will again today. And it makes a very clear understanding to us, that the worship of Nirguna Vyaka or Avyakta is not very comfortable or is not very easy for most of the devotees. And you know that verse, correct? That is verse number 5 of chapter number 12. And then they say, Klesho Vigatastesam Avyakta Satyatikasam Avyakta hi Gade Dukkham Dehavat Yava. So when we want to worship Paramatma or the supreme reality in the Nirguna or the unqualified form, it is most difficult for whom? Dehavat or embodied. So all of us are embodied, and we are feeling that this body belongs to Nirakara or the attributeless or unqualified form is very difficult. Well, Lord says that for two reasons. The first thing is we are excessively connected or attached to this physical body. And by now all think of subtle body also, right? And obviously that even new. And now it is common to all, right? The subtle body is the real part of ourselves, which goes on from not to whatever. So we are so much attached to our mind, intellect, and more than the physical body. So because of this extreme abidance and attachment to this gross and subtle body, we cannot dissociate from that, and we cannot attach ourselves to that innermost reality, which is named the formless body. What is the second reason? Second reason Swamiji says, Drashyate hi agraya, uddaya, sushmaya, sushmadashiti. So, let us assume that we are able to dissociate from the body and mind. In our meditative form, we feel that we are not so much. Then also, the other reason they say is, it requires a very subtle intellect, to be able to grasp that. As you all know, that this supreme reality is very subtle, subtler than the subtlest. And that is how it is very difficult to grasp. See, for example, if you want to view any particular object, right? The human eyes have got limitations. It can behold any particular object up to 50 micron size, approximately. That is 0.05 millimeter. Any object finer than or smaller than 0.05 millimeter cannot be seen by the human eye. Likewise, any sound is there, only above a particular decibel, the sound can be grasped by this supreme. So likewise, all our indriyas, and all our mind, and for that matter, our intellect also has got limitations because it is gross, and it cannot conceive, it cannot comprehensively grasp the subtlest of the subtle. So only when they say that during our spiritual practices, during our japa, meditation, we are able to make this intellect, man and buddhi cleaner, calmer and subtle. Only then slowly we will be able to behold or grasp that particular buddhi. So we understand two things here, that why can't we grasp as Nirakara form? Because of our excessive attachment to the physical and the subtle body, and because it requires a very, very subtle, very, very sharp intellect, which is not common to most of the people. And even then we have got a very sharp intellect, that is not sufficient. See, in the words of Jayant, we used to say that we need to have ethical idealism, we need to have intellectual idealism. But even then, intellectual idealism is good, but that is not good enough to be able to function with it. So most of the people will not have that intellectual idealism or certain intellect also. But even having that also, it is not difficult, it is not last. So the message which we right now want to convey is that this particular path is only suitable for Jnana Yogis. Those who are equipped with sadhana, Krishna and full measures, as you learn by now, Vivek, Vairagya, Krishna and Moksha. And then that aspiration is very right, that one goes to the Guru, who is both Shukriya and Brahmeshwar. That means he knows the scriptures and he also has intimately experienced that particular thing. And then we listen to that particular Mahapurusha, Shravana. What happens? That initially the knowledge which was not there, now slowly the knowledge will come. And that knowledge will commonly called as a Paroksha or the India. And what is next to Shravana? Or reflection. Why go to reflection? What is the main advantage of reflection? Shravana, once we do, we already know the basic class, we already understand the subject. The Paroksha Jnana is there. And the reflection is for Manan, what we call, that is for reaffirming. Right? So whenever we are listening encourage doubts. We then will miss the particular thing which is being said. So once we are listening, Shravan is complete, then Mana can speak. In fact, it can be other things also, but then there is to be afterwards. So once you do reflection, whatever doubts which are there, they will slowly get resolved. And then we say, Shravan, Mana, Nidhi. It is a kind of meditation for the mind. It is a meditation for the mind. And what does it do? What purpose it serves? You already had the indirect knowledge. Whatever doubts were there, they already were resolved by Mana for the reflection. So, Nidhyasana, what we call, or meditation for meaning. What purpose does it serve? Experiencing, okay, you will say that. That's true. When you say experiencing, physically experience, not just the indirect part, but that is something which you immediately feel. But the real objective is to get a given experience, but why we don't get it is because of what is called victorious bhavana. What is called victorious bhavana. So thoughts which are opposite, thoughts which are contradictory. And because those kind of thinking and everything which we have entertained, sustained for the last so many years, so that adverse or the contrary feeling suddenly comes in. And many times we see that we are satisfied with something, and all of a sudden that particular intellect will come, and the whole idea will go. So for Nirmo Nirakar Upasana, for a Gnana Yogi, these three steps are important. And first, he must qualify himself by pursuance of sadhana chaturshya. It is basically called as Antaravin sadhana. There is a Vairil sadhana. That part I am not taking right now. That's called Antaravin sadhana. And once you are able to have a purified intellect, clean intellect, subtle intellect, then only the process of Shravana will be possible. Otherwise, it will come. And then comes Mana, and then comes Nidhyasana. And one is property, again that is reality. And they say that once a particular jnana has come, that Atma jnana, not the jnana of individual material objects. And once the Atma jnana has gone, all those previous sanskaras, which are also referred to as sins sometimes, they are wiped out. See, that day also, I think, I made a mention that Mudeva has made a very nice observation here. That japa, tapa, and other sadhanas which you perform, they will be able to thin out the sanskaras. They will be able to make game or dilute the sanskaras and ignore it. But the complete elimination of sanskaras and that vasanas will happen immediately. So this is the main philosophy of that Jnana Yoga, that all other sadhanas, they don't deny, they don't denounce. Only thing they say that these are all perfect. And once they are pursued, our intellect is rendered calm, our intellect is rendered secular, it is ready for the reception of the divinity. So all other sadhanas are not removed, are not accepted, but they say that they are only a preparation. And only when that is Jnana Yoga, maybe the last day Brahmacharya part that is more about that, there is prakriyas are there, and there is what there's 3 or 4 different prakriyas are there, whereby that particular ignorance can be eliminated and the Atma can come, and that is what is called as Satya Mukti, immediate liberation. So that part we will see. Now, as Bhagavan himself says, that those who are not able to perform, those who are not ready for this particular kind of a sadhana, for this particular kind of a worship, what should they try to do? Then the ideal thing for them is they have to go for Samusakara Upasana. Now we are not going to various verses because I want to explain some other thing also. But just we take 1 or 2 other verses. Having said Bhagavan, that worship of the Parabrahman Samusakara form is very difficult. It is good that if we gain Samusakara Upasana. Then 2 verses we can just touch and then we can go further. Bhagavan says in that same chapter, Yetu Sarvani Karmani, Mai Sanya Sumatpara, Ananya Deva Yoga, Manka Yantu Upasana. So here that is the reference of what is called as Ananya Yoga. So where we worship or where we abide by nothing else but only that particular supreme reality, also called as Bhagavan, and is also called as Ananya Yoga, then God will take care of all our problems. Isham Am Samudrata, Mukti Sansara Sadara, Bhavaminasgata, Samita, Vejishvidata. That is Chitta is only confined to me. And one more verse which is very popular in the Bhagavad Gita, that is Mayeva Maya Buddhim Nivesh Nivasishya Mayeva Atavadava. Why I am reading these verses? Just to say about the other part. And when we are not able to perform that Nirgun Nirakara Upasana, and we have to take the other course. At that time, we have to make use of all the equipments which God has given to us. And the mind and the intellect are the most inner instruments with us. So, that mind has to be completely offered to Ishvara, and Buddhi also has to be completely aligned to Ishvara, and then that particular person is revealed. That we also discussed that whenever a person performs the whole Sankara Upasana also, the whole Nirakara Upasana, both are same. So ultimately both are aimed at the same supreme reality. But in one case, because of the knowledge of the self dawns, there is so-called immediate liberation or Satya Mukti. On the other side, what we have is the commitment. That is gradual liberation. So that one is able to perform the Sagun Sakara Upasana with full of dedication and love. Then they say that at the time of departure of this physical body, that particular individual attains Brahmaloka, stays and enjoys the power and the situation of the Brahmaloka, and then when the time of Brahmaji's life is over, at that time, by the sheer grace of the Brahmaji, without performing the Shravana, Manana and Nidhyasana, he is able to attain the supreme Godhead. He is able to attain the supreme Godhead. So this is called as Sagun Sakara Upasana and Nirgun Nirakara Upasana, both will lead to the same objective. Now, let us see what exactly is this Sagun Sakara Upasana and how do we do it. So, when the God is manifested, the manifestation can be seen in three forms. One is Adi Bhautik, one is Adi Devi, and one is Adi Bhautik is also called as Shar. Or it is also Shar as per 15th chapter of Bhagavad Gita. And as per 13th chapter, what do we call that? That is called Kshetra, or the field. And Adhyatma. That is, what do we call that? One is Kshara, this is Akshara. One is Kshetra, one is Kshetra. Right now we are not touching the middle one. We just try to understand the whole process of creation. So whole creation of Ishvara can be considered into three parts. Adi Bhautik, Adi Devi, and Adi. Now what is meant by Adi Bhautik? Last year also we were discussing about that 7th chapter of Bhagavad Gita, correct? And I said something. So, you recall something? See, in a very basic sense, we can see that the whole world that we see can be considered as comprising of Jagata and Jiva. The one is the field and one is the experiencer of the field. You know that the whole world is there and I am the one who is experiencing it. Okay? So one is called like Kshetra and one is called like Kshetra. Now, let us try to understand it more clearly. What is meant by this Adhibhuta or the Kshara? According to Sankhya philosophy and according to Vedanta philosophy, there are slight differences. But we will focus mainly on the Vedanta philosophy and we will not touch more about this. Sankhya, just touch upon it slightly. But just to make you a little more explicitly clear about this subject, in Bhagavad Gita, 7th chapter, Bhagavan describes there are two types of Prakriti Bhagavan. One is called as Apara Prakriti, one is called as a Para. Apara Prakriti is lower nature. Para Prakriti is higher. So, according to Sankhya, Prakriti and Purusha are two different entities. Prakriti gives rise to several evolutions. And things are there. That also we try to see right now. But Prakriti is considered independent of Purusha. And in association with Purusha, it is able to have some 17 different elements. That is for the Sankhya Prakriti. Right now we will try to see first what is there in Vedanta and what Bhagavad Gita says. And we will try to see how that helps us in the worship of the God. Ultimately come. So let us first think of the Apara Prakriti or the lower nature. There Bhagavan says that when that Brahman or the Supreme Reality combines with the lower nature or the Apara Prakriti, 8 different forms are taking place. And this was Ashtada Prakriti. So what are they? Bhumi, that is Prithvi. Then Apa, that is this water. Then Anala, that is fire. Then Vayu, that is air. And Kam, that is Akash or the ether. Ether is the earlier term, now it is called as Akash or Akash. Monobuddhi Evacham, Ahankara, Sitiyam Me, Jinna, Prakriti. So 8 elements are there. Now how it has come in this order? Now when they say Bhumi, why Bhumi has come first among the Panch Mahabhutas? Here this is the Panch Mahabhuta which are multiplicated of Panch Mahabhuta. The first thing is Bhumi. So that is Earth. Now why among the 5, how Earth is different? When we say it is 5 Panch Mahabhutas, that is Prithvi, Jal, Agni, Vayu and Akash. So why Prithvi is first? Why Prithvi is first and Akash is last? It is a process, correct? So when you say ultimately when it comes to evolution, ultimately the gross will come last. But for the sake of understanding, we are starting from gross to flesh. So when you say Bhumi, so why is gross compared to others? There are 5 different Vishayas. It is called as Sabda, Sparsha, Rupa, Rasa and Guna. So Prithvi has all 5 of them or not? So Prithvi, if you consider Sabda, it can produce sound, Sparsha, Rupa, Rasa and Guna. Everything is there in Prithvi. Let the process cannot stop. And once we talk of the Panch Mahabhutas, in this Panch Devata also, the concept which is given by atSivananda also, there also this thing will come. If you immediately talk after the complete story. So Bhumi, then comes Apa, that is Jal. So water is subtle compared to earth and gross compared to fire. So how many things this water can perceive? What does Prakyuta cylinder? Shabdas, Rupas, none is not there. So water doesn't have any order. So that will not be there. So as we become more and more subtler, we become more and more away from the gunas, and we go towards more and more guna state. So first is Bhumi, up, then another. So that is fire, and this physical fire what we see. So how many entities it has got? Shabda, Sparsha, then there is sound. Sparsha, then you can touch. Rupa is also there. So there is no rasa and there is no Indra. So that way it is more subtle. Then Vayu, Sabda, Sparsha, Rupa, Rasa and Gandha. What is there again? Vayu, Sabda, Sparsha, Rupa will not be there. Rasa will not be there. And once we talk about the Akasha, see Akash is a word. Or Akash is an element of Mahabhuta. It is considered very similar to Brahman. In the sense that when you go to compare it with Brahman, Akash is something which is considered very clear in terms of its pervasiveness. Because there is nothing else so much here all pervasive as the Akash. In Akasha we have only one Vishaya. What is that? sound. Ultimately, how the first sound came? That Omkar sound came. So even if you see any small disturbance is there. See, ultimately, Prakriti initially it was there. Where this Sattva, Rajas and Tamas, they are all in perfect equilibrium. And when the equilibrium gets slightly disturbed, that creation comes. See, if you see some analytical instruments also, some of you might have seen photography also, right? So when you inject a particular sample, you can get some peak or response. But even when you inject a blank sample, you get a small peak. Why you are getting that? Because the system was stable and a small disturbance was made. So a small disturbance is reflected in terms of a small peak of which is no compound, not even in pressure. Only blank sample there will still get a signal. So in a perfectly harmonized or balanced situation, this small disturbance also creates a signal. Likewise, when there was a complete even equipoise, that little disturbance was also created, that sound Omkara, and that is the basis of all, not just the sound, but because the sounds, because names, because forms, and the entire creation that we see is because of that Omkara. It's very beautiful explanation. If you see the whole thing, that even when we are sitting near the seashore or near the river flowing, or even tree just whispering, so if you try to feel, you can get that feeling of Omkara sound. This Apara Prakriti, what we call, or the lower nature, manifests in 8 forms. That is Bhumi, Apaha, Nagaha, Vayu, then Mana and Bhuti, and Ahankara. There is more deeper meaning of it also, that what is called as Mana here in cosmic terms is connected to Ahankara, what we call as Bhuti in cosmic terms is connected to Mahaka, and what we call as Ahankara is connected to Mula. Let us not go that deep. You will look at the development individual side also, that all these 5 Panchamahamutas are there, and we have got in mind, and if you have mind is something without Ahankara, there are some thoughts and different things. So these are Nishyatmika represents. And what is Ahankara? In that sense, Ahankara is also a part of the Dekushya. And what do we call Ahankara? Ahankara is really subject to scientific ponder. But then any vritti or anything where I associate me, that particular vritti or that particular action becomes Ahankara. Where the sense of I-ness comes, that particular vritti becomes Ahankara. So these are the 8 different forms of what is called the Apara Prakriti. It should be there in the Samasti level, it will also be there in the question. So that explains the total, which is made up of the 5 Mahabhutas. Okay? And that is called the Akshara. Why? Because it is susceptible or it is prone to change every second. It is prone to change. Any world, if you see any phenomena in the world, there is a constant change taking place every second. Even this physical body also. You know, if you see that all the cells are constantly undergoing changes, they are dividing. This cholesterol problem what we normally understand, hypercholesterol, what we call. Right from a moment the child is born, that atherosclerosis process starts. Actually, a change is continuously taking place. It's called the Ashram. It's also called as a field. And that's all. Now, what is it happening? Shara is there. So, if there is a field comprising of this Panchamahamutas, now understand that when we say Shara, what is field, does it include us or not? Does it include us or not? When we say Shara of the field, does it include or not include? Because we understand Shara something outside us. But our own physical body, our own mind, our own intellect, our own mind is a part of that. We have also created the Panchamahamutas. So all the physical body created Panchamahamutas. And our mind, intellect is made of Panchamahamutas. So whether it is world outside or this physical body, whether it is gross or subtle, everything is called as Shara. Everything is called as a field. Because it involves the mind. Sometimes you feel mind was good, you got good thought, you didn't get thought. Sometimes intellect is like what I did not follow. So that way we have the observer of mind and intellect both. Everything is a part of that. feel. Just like other objects are there, this physical body. Only it is live because of the presence of some soul inside. Otherwise it is same. When it dies, there is no difference between physical body and the other object. Everything is called as a shut. It's called as a Paribhuta. What is Adhyatmika? Adhyatmika is in 7th chapter of Bhagavad Gita. Next verse one says that when not with the lower nature, but with the help of the upper, of the higher nature, what is called as a Parabhuta. So in that manifested or created world, that very Paramatman enters, manifests. In this particular individual, and what is called as a Jiva, what is called as an Atma. So that is the one which gives life or the sentience to the whole body-mind complex. Right? So, how is it different then from that supreme being? So here we call Ashram. Or we call it as a Chitram. So in Bhagavad Gita they say Akshara and Purushottam they say. So is Purushottam and Akshara different? And they say they are not different actually. Same Purushottama is manifesting in ourselves as Jivatma. And one most important lesson in Vedanta class which you must learn and understand what by heart is that Jiva or what is Atman is not the Karya, is not the effect of the Brahman. But Jagat is the effect. Jagat is the effect. But Jiva is not the effect. Jiva is Brahman himself. And that is why we call Brahma Satyam Jagat Mithya Jivo Brahmaiva Natara. This Jagat is there and they call Mithya. Now Mithya, does it mean doesn't exist? Mithya means dependent existence. Mithya means dependent existence. One which cannot exist by itself. But whose existence is dependent upon something else, some higher power. That is why it is called Jagat. So it is valid at some point of time, at some particular place, but not beyond that. Beyond that time, beyond that place, the satta or the reality of the situation goes. That is what is called as a Mithya. So when you say Brahma Satya, Jagat Mithya, so Brahma is supreme, that Satya, there is no problem there. But Jagat Mithya, when you say, what does it mean? That because it is evolved, it is coming to being, and it does not have a permanent duality. Its existence is not independent. It depends upon something. At particular time and place, it will dissolve, disappear. So it is called as a Shar, right? And feel. Right? So it is the Karya. Jagata is the Karya or the effect. And Jiva is not the Karya. Jiva is the human itself. This is one of the most basic, what we call in mathematics for identity, the basic truth. All understanding everything is based upon that. So Jiva Brahmaiva Napara. So when you say Adhyatma, is that very Paramatma is residing in our heart. You know, the different verses are also there. And why we call it Akshar, and that we call Purushottam. That Jiva is not different from Parabrahma. Only because of some ignorance of the self, some unknown reasons, some mysterious reasons, that Jiva identifies itself and feels as if it is Jnana, body, mind, intellect, etc. That is why it becomes Jiva. Otherwise it is Atma. And when the Atma it is same as Brahma, there is no difference. So the higher power of Brahma is called as Paraprakriti. And because of the Paraprakriti, it manifests in the Kshetra and the Kshetrasana. Kshetrama Japimam is our very Kshetrama. You know that no I am the Kshetrama and not different. So that is what is now understood. Right? There are two ways Parabrahma is manifesting. Why are we saying that this in a more little theoretical way? To understand how this creation can be made the basis of our worship. How we can see Paramatma, how we can see Lord in this creation. That's the object. So what is Adibhuta? All the field comprising of Mahabhutas, all the rivers, mountains, forests, this physical body, mind, intellect, everything. That is Adibhuta. And the one who is deciding in this and one who is experiencing this, that is only called as a Chitra or Akshara. So you can worship both ways. And Parabrahman is there in both the things that we try to see right now. But before we come to that point, we also want to touch upon the other thing. That is called as a Adi Devi. So what is Adi Devi? This is two parts are very clear. That Jagat is created. Madhiput is there. Adhyatmik is there. Adhyatmik is the one who is residing, experiencing, ruling by being inside, ruling as an Atman. So what is Adivevika? Adivevika is what? Adivevika is what normally we understand as God. Adivevika is something what we normally worship as God. And Adivevika is something which connects with Adibhut and with Adhyatmik. We are able to connect, we are able to experience the world outside because there is thing between some reality, which is called as Adivevika. And Adivevika are the various kind of devatas which are here. And whom will not be worship. And that itself is a very big subject of discussion. But when we see that in case of Rigveda, Yajurveda, Brahmana, and even in case of Vedanta Upanishad also, they explain that there are 33 40 devatas like that before. I think everybody must have heard about that. So, and basically devatas are what? They are not only at the level of samasti. Devatas are there at the level of gesture. So this particular Chakshurendriya has a power to behold because there is a native sun standing in. So behind all the indriyas there is some kind of devata. And similarly in samasti also there are devatas. So devatas are there both at the level of gesture as well as at the level of samasti. When we chant the Shanti part, we are offering prayers. If you see carefully, we are offering prayers to both these deities at the level of samasti as well as the level of individual. There are about 33 devatas we call. Normally we call this 12 Adityas, 11 Rudras, and 8 Vasus, and 2 Ashwinis are there. So the names are there, I think they are available everywhere, so I'm not reading that. And 33 Koti when they say, so Koti what does it mean? Koti is it doesn't mean 33 crores. Right? So these so many these deities are there, and then we call this Brahma, Vishnu, Mahesh, and all other this Vayu, everything is called. So even if you just probably by the side among these 12 Adityas, they consider Vishnu, they consider Aryama, Indra, like this. Similarly among the Adityas are the various manifestations of Surya. When we talk about the Rudras, they are basically more connected with Lord Shiva, and they are more connected with the transformative aspects. And then we have various Rudras also, which is this Manu, this Shiva, and things like that. And the Vasus. The Vasus are very common to us. That all these 5 Mahabhutas, and this Agni, Prithvi, Vayu, all these moon, sun like that, and more Ashwini. Now, this is all known, so I have nothing to say more about it. So what I am saying is, our worship of God is basically confined at the level of Adiveva. So Adiveva is the higher species than human being. Human being is being called Homo sapiens, and we have got some limitations. What limitations we have got? That we have got Sattva Pradhan, Rajas Pradhan, Tamas Pradhan, then there are all other karmas, limitations. So devas are not the supreme reality. Devas are functioning at the instance of the supreme reality. And that one of the verses in Bhagavad Gita I was reading, where it was stated that all these deities are performing their work in a very orderly manner, in a very qualitative manner, and devatas themselves do not know, what is expected of them, what the supreme reality is going to tell them. So who are we to know? But then because they are endowed with some higher power, they are full of sattva. They are full of sattva. Unlike devotees, there is no sattva and tamas also, but the devatas are considered full of sattva. But even then, they are under the influence of that particular mind. They are not fully independent. Even though they are devatas, full of sattvas, some more plus points compared to human existence, there are limitations, and they are still abiding and carrying out the work of that supreme reality. The sun is working, moon is working, all deities are working because they are the supreme order. So Adiveva is something which we don't need to explain. Everybody knows, and we have a reverence for that. That is what we learn from our family. That is what we learn from our scripture also. And we are doing worship in different ways. It could be form of yajna, it could be form of worship. Now the question is, how should we worship this Adibhuta and Adhyatmika? Because now we know that they have come out of the supreme reality, they are created from that. Right? So anything which has come, whatever effect is there, the characteristics of Aram or the cause will be there. Right? So when something happens to something, particularly all the effect there will be properties of the cause. So when Brahman has converted or Brahman has transformed itself into this creation, what are the identifying traits of Brahman? If you say, and those traits you would like to see in this Jagata or in this, then we can make a just it is there. So what are the traits or what are the lakshanas of Brahman? Very commonly what do we call? There are various ways, but very commonly called as Satchitananda we call that. Now Satchitananda, that is the Swarupa Lakshana. That is the Swarupa Lakshana. Original intrinsic character, that's called as a, and Mahapurushas say that even this Satchitananda is also a divisional definition. That is also not a divisional actual. But Satchitananda is there. So if Paramatma is Satchitananda, there are two types of properties of Ishvara. One is called as Swarupa Lakshana, and the second is called as Tatatsa Lakshana. Only say God as omnipresent, omniscient. What are these? These are called Tatatsa Lakshana. In relation to creation, you have to say that God is omnipresent, God is omnipotent, God is omniscient. But if creation is not there, there is no point in calling it as omnipotent, omnipresent, and omniscient. So they are the secondary, or Tatatsa Lakshana. But the primary Lakshana is what? Satchitananda, it's called as Swarupa Lakshana. So if Swarupa Lakshana of Paramatma is Satchit and Anand, it must be there in Jagat, it must be there in Jiva. Oh, there are very good two verses are there. If you study them, then we understand how the world manifests, God manifests himself homogeneously everywhere. So one particular verse which I think most people understand is Asti Bhati Priyam Rupam Nama Chityam Panchakam Adhyatra Brahma Rupam Jagat Rupam Ayotaya. Have you heard this verse? Have you heard this verse? If not, then it will be known. They say any object in this manifested world if you see, it will have five properties. The first thing is Asti, that is existence. So existence itself is very obvious because everything exists. Right? How about us? We also exist because nobody thinks, nobody doubts about one human existence. They may doubt thousand things, but we will never doubt whether I exist or not. That is the most obvious thing to us. Right? So Asti, second we can think for 5 minutes. So Asti, Bhati. So Bhati is something which shines, which reveals itself. So any object which is in the world, that by virtue of its property, by any virtue of science, it becomes obvious to others and it also knows its own traits. So when we are there, we are aware of ourselves and we are aware of other environment. So Asti, Bhati, privilege. And Priyam Rupa. Priya is what? That is dear, something love. So, these are, and two more are there, Nama and Rupa. So any object in the world will have 5 traits. Asti means existence, Bhati means revelation, Kriya means clearness, and Nama and Rupa. And they say Adhyatra Brahma Rupa. These 3 things, existence, revelation, and clearness, is Brahma Rupa. Because everything has come into being from the Supreme Reality for Brahman, that this Chit and Anand can be pursued. Nama and Rupa they are called Nitya. That is because of the association of the Maya that the world is coming into existence and every object has got Nama and Rupa. So what is Mithya is Nama and Rupa. So when the Jagat is Mithya, what does it mean? Because of this Nama and Rupa, it is Mithya. Nobody is Brahma Satyam, that is Mithya. And we say that we should always have Mithya Buddhi for the Jagata and Atma Buddhi for the soul. But Sarvam Parika Brahma, they say, the whole world is Brahman identity. What does it mean? That if we are able to behold, or if we are able to perceive any manifestation as Sat, as Chit, and as Ananda, anything has the capability of giving joy, pleasure to someone. Even the most discarded thing also in the world, even fecal matter, will also have some value for the microorganisms. They ferment on that and they create something. There is nothing in the world which is worth not useful. So everything will have this Asti, Bhati and Kriya. So if you can look upon any object in the world as Asti, Bhati and Kriya, then that is Brahman itself. So even in that Kshetra, even in that Kshara also, what a Brahman is. So one way of worship of of Paramatma, Adivedic. One way is we can revere Parabrahman in Adibhuta Vasham. So all created things, if we can behold atSivananda, that is, we can behold Ishvara, that is also worship of Ashram. And this worship is done by generally committed. This Adivedic type of bhakti is never done bhakti hoya. People who are devotees, so those who are Karma Yoga, they are able to see the moment presence of Lord everywhere. And when they perform any kind of an action, they perform as if they are living in the image of God, and whatever action is there, they have got no action. They perform it as a service to God, and they offer the fruit. So that worship of Adibhuta is primarily done by, other people cannot do it, done by Karma. Now when you say, in Atman, can we hold ourselves in the Atman? As a Parabrahman. So normally they say another type of thing in the Advaita Makarana. One thing we talk about is Jayant. We talk about the Jiva. They say Aham Asmi. Nobody ever in the world will have doubt about this one existence. Everybody existence is there. That's what. Salavani, I will experience myself. Whatever I experience in dream state, in waking state, in sleeping state, I never have. So consciousness is there in me. Aham Asmi, Salavani, Katachin, Aham. No, I am never disliked and myself. Everybody, Atman Sthut Ramana Sarvam Devoti. In that very Uttara Uttara Jayant says, everybody will like other things only because they help in getting towards me. I love myself the most. So this proves that my service. So take it further. But just to put it maybe in a few words, that when you worship the Lord, one thing is Pratikarana. Or Pratikarana. We don't need any kind of pratik. That is meant for the Jnani Yogi. And this can be done by only Uttam Adhikari who can give the all pervasive presence of God. And second is Pratikarana. And Pratikarana is also two types. One is Dehavalambana and one is Pratimarana. So in Pratikarana two types, Dehavalambana means that this particular body is there. I don't have any image of God or anything, but when I just meditate, I always meditate upon the Parabrahman I decided in my heart. So that is called Jayant. And one is Pratikarana. So either is particular image or particular. In that case, we want the Adhyatma kind of existence. At that time, they are worshipping Him. Correct? So one is Pratikarana, mainly for this Jnani Yogi type. Don't require any particular kind of symbol. That is mainly Hindu Nilakar Bhakti. And in case of Pratikarana, it is what is Dehavalambana. I don't depend upon any God, or anything, but I just meditate, but I still need this body's support. And I think that within this body, that Atman is Paramatma. That is called Dehavalambana. And other thing most common for all people is Pratikarana. Any particular image or deity or anything, that's just in that way. So, in a nutshell, what we like to say is Parabrahman in its Nilakar form is also it has an object, and there is also reality for worship, and all its three manifestations. In Adi Bhautik form, Adi Devi we are doing, that is not a new thing. But what we need to understand is, in Adi Bhautik, in Adhyatmic manifestations are also manifestations of Ishvara, and if we can learn to devote atSivananda in that, that is also equivalent worship of. So this is how we just try to conclude about what is called Avataras and how we can worship. I hope I am able to make some points clear. If anything is there, maybe next class we can. Thank you very much for your time.